Well, Rolf, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you. Um, the core of your work in the last, more than a decade, as well as your book Relationship Matters, all centers around relationships. And why, to quote the title of your book, do you think that relationships really matter?
It's a good question, and thanks for having me. I look back on my career, and if I look at every step of that, and also through my personal life, there are different people that are connected to it. And I think that maybe when we're younger, we don't have such an emphasis on relationships that matter, because we take for granted everyone around us, and maybe we're more
Yeah.
free. But as I'm grown older, those relationships that have helped me, when I reflect on it, have, set where I am today. And so, really taking time to think about relationships, both personally and professionally, and how we nurture those, I think is worthwhile. And so that's what I've been dedicating a lot of time to.
Yeah. And because you founded and participated in several ventures and startups that aim to stimulate and monetize relationship management. And your latest one is Meerkats.ai. My first question would be, why is the company called Meerkats?
Well, meerkats are very communal and they protect each other. And so I think it's very representative of what I'm trying to do in building meaningful relationships. And I mean, also they're very cute. So, if you're gonna have a company, that helps.
Okay. And what is the value that Meerkats IA delivers for its clients? What does it enable clients and users of the platform to do?
Yeah, so when I was writing the book, I kept always thinking about how do I manage my networks online, or what technologies can I use? And I really kept getting stuck because if you look at what we have around us, we have, CRM applications,
Yeah.
which, are overkill for individuals and not that fun. You have LinkedIn, which is great for, connecting and staying in touch, but I really don't have an overview of what that network is.
Nee,
And
nee.
then you've got Excel,
Ja,
which is
ja,
also fun. So I just kept thinking, there's got to be a better solution for this. And Meerkat is really that. It helps us combine and understand our networks and engage them in conversations. And think of it like an AI guide in a chat, but having access to your network. So you can really, combine people together and then think, oh, who do I need to connect with? And then Meerkat can tell you. So it's taking this to the next level, and I think a lot of it is that we have the technologies today that we didn't have 5, 10 years ago, and that's what I find really exciting about this venture.
yeah. And can you mention an example of a use case, let's say where a user of Meerkats could really benefit from kind of, an industry example or, practitioner example?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about a startup, you've got a team of founders, they have their networks, and then you have investors who have networks, and then you've got friends and family there. And if you wanted to get all of those networks together in one place, it would be impossible because you just don't have the option to
No,
combine and plug and play networks.
no.
And so with Meerkat, you can do that. It's as simple as just setting up a chat. The networks are connected to the people in that chat, and then Meerkat navigates it. So, you could then ask Meerkat, who can we reach out to for clients? And then it'll look at all the networks of the people that are in that group, and it'll say, oh, here's an overview of potential clients, and here's how you're connected to those people.
Um, and what is in it, let's say, for Meerkats, in the sense of how does the monetization work? What does your business model look like?
Yeah, so it's a freemium offering. So we've got a
Mhm.
free service where people can come together and interact with Meerkat, and then there's a next level of service where you can engage your networks as well. And then we have an enterprise version that's using a lot of proprietary data. So you might plug in your CRM data, for example, or a specific data set, and involve that in the discussion with Meerkat.
Ah, okay. Hey, and that space, that would be one of my concerns when I read about it. this space seems to be riddled with all kind of, data privacy requirements and regulations, etc. How have you dealt with that, let's say, in setting up the model and the software and in order to prevent clients from, doing potentially all kind of, activities that are not compliant with data privacy laws and regulations? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yes, we're starting in the U.S. Because the U.S. has a very different regulatory take on this. So they're more of an opt out, where Europe is opt in. So we'll start with the U.S. and then we'll see what we need to do to provide some of Meerkat services in Europe and in other countries. But I agree, it's very restrictive in Europe to do something in anything in this area.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can find a solution that we can also share with in
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah, it's kind of a broader debate, right? That in Europe, let's say, there are all kind of protective, rules and regulations and legislation. But on the other hand, Europe also becomes more kind of, exceptional geography in that area because, the constraints in Europe are not, let's say, constraints that companies in the US or Asia, let's say, need to deal with, and that can, of course, potentially slow down innovation. So yeah, I think that's a that's a very good choice. Hey, if people want to know more about meerkats, or perhaps even get experiences with them, what would you recommend them to do? Where can they go?
Yeah, so we're just in the early stages. So we've got a pilot address. So it's pilot at trymeerkat.ai that people can write to. And then in the next weeks, we'll update more of our website to provide more of what we're doing. And then we'll have a pilot that starts in February where we can start to get people's feedback. So, I'm very excited to have people join and get feedback and be part of that journey.
Super. I will put the address in the show notes so people can read up and potentially join the pilot. Thank you for that. Um, Ralph, moving on to a different topic, you recently published a book called Relationship Matters. And now most people assume that relationships center around connecting with others. And in that sense, I was quite surprised when I read your book that you actually start with, connecting with yourself. For instance, the first chapter is dedicated to practicing mindfulness. The second one focuses on self-care and emotional intelligence. Why did you start a book about relationships with, let's say, connecting with yourself and self-management?
It's a good question. I think that to have healthy relationships, you need to have a healthy relationship with yourself. And so, understanding who you are, being present, being mindful, this helps you have a stronger, more meaningful connection with people around you. And so I think that, starting with yourself is not a bad place to begin because, if you look at, different relationships that people have, it's two-sided, and a lot of times, there's things that all of us can do to be more mindful that could actually help make that relationship more meaningful.
Yeah. And what I also found interesting in your book, and we know each other from, let's say, a business context, is you identify several important relationships which are absolutely not business related. So you mentioned, for instance, families and friendships. Why did you not restrict yourself to professional relationships?
Yeah, I really wanted to take a comprehensive look at relationships because we just don't have only professional relationships, and we
Hmm.
have friendships, and professional relationships can also be friendships. And I think that we need to have a healthy portfolio of different types of relationships to feel, let's say, content or fulfilled. And
Hmm.
so, that's why I wanted to focus on those different types of relationships. And I find that, they get a bit blurry because, close friendships can feel like family and professional relationships can feel like friendships. And,
Yeah,
if you've got a culture, it can also start to feel like a family. So there are a lot of overlaps.
yeah, I believe that, and I think picking up on that in business, the word relationship almost has a kind of transactional. connotation around it, right? People often engage in relationships with another person because they need something from that other person, or they think they might need something from that other person in the future. Um, but is that not a very shallow basis for a meaningful long-term relationship? How do you see that?
I think that we all look for something in any type of relationship that we're in, and it doesn't have to be monetary. We could be looking for kindness or respect or, support. So, if we don't get that from a relationship, then we don't see value in it. And, that's not a commercial value, but if I don't feel appreciated in a relationship, then I don't want to be part of it. So, I think that, I thought about the question a lot, and the idea of just truly having a relationship without any self-interest, to me doesn't seem possible
No.
because it's just very unrealistic. Because I want to be with a person because maybe they make me feel happy or they make me feel good
Yeah,
or they're
yeah,
supportive.
yeah,
So, I think it extends far beyond like a commercial type definition.
yeah. Yeah, because also common wisdom is that you need to have a relationship before you actually need it. Now, given, let's say, the insecurity on the labor market and the economy nowadays, a lot of people suddenly find themselves in an urgent need to build relationships, and they need them now. Do you have any, let's say, advice or recommendations from people who may have neglected networking in the past and are now in a position that they really, really need it? Would you have any recommendations, any tips or any advice?
Well, I think that it's, never too late to restart a relationship or
Hmm.
get back in and engage. And I think that if you're sincere and, start a conversation that's mindful and not just, opportunistic, you can restart relationships. I think that we have an over uh, I, regarding our digital relationships, I think that we have too much confidence in what they can bring for us. And I think that we often think that we've got a large network that we've met over time, through Zoom calls and everything else. But those relationships are a lot harder to convert to help if you need it.
Yeah,
And I think that that's my concern with a lot of social networks today is that people feel like they are really plugged in to something, when in
yeah.
reality, if they need something, there's not a lot of depth there.
No. No, I personally I always find it a great acid test. I mean, I know thousands of people through LinkedIn, and my acid test is always if I need something or ask someone to, it could be even connect me to someone or basically share an insight or whatever. That it's surprising, let's say, the ratio where the conversation becomes eerily quiet. So, so I can definitely testify to that point. Um, if you think about the business world, what are some of the limitations that digital communities and digital relationships have? I mean, what do you see as the unique value that face-to-face relationships and communities can offer, especially in the business world, that digital, relationships and communities cannot?
I think that, a big part of relationships are the memories that come, from the time that you spend together. And I think that in the digital world, we have a lot less memories that are memorable, because our calls are very focused. And, I can't think back and be like, oh, we had this amazing call. It was so funny. It was the best time of my life. I could think of a lot of times like that in person that I've
Yeah,
been to with people and had experiences. So I think that that's the challenge is how do you create memories from these digital experiences that
yeah,
resonate? And I don't know what the answer is to that. I think that we're not there yet because we don't or every time we have an interaction online, it's scheduled. I don't just randomly FaceTime you and,
no,
start
no,
talking. And maybe when we get to that point, those relationships will change.
yeah.
But it's very difficult through the current format.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think you mentioned a great point in the sense of, common memories which are often, let's say, experiences. Like for instance, I know to people in a company where I worked for, and they hardly knew each other, but they really bonded over the fact that, as you remember, a couple of years ago, that volcano in Iceland exploded, and they couldn't take a train back, and instead they had to take a horrendous drive with rental cars, and and basically missed connecting boats, etc., etc. So they had a kind of 24 bonding experience, if only by the fact that they could not find a hotel and needed to spend a night in a car together somewhere. So you're absolutely right. You will not see that in digital relationships. No. Um, However, what I found an interesting, you introduced what was for me a new phrase in your book. That was, you talked about a digital etiquette, which we should adopt basically in digital communities, digital relationships. Can you share a few words around what that etiquette looks like in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that it's, basically rules that we need to follow online. And when someone helps you holds the door for you when you walk into a restaurant, you say thank you. And when you're online and somebody likes your content, you have an obligation, or you should reciprocate that. And, the next time someone posts, something, and then you should engage on that person's post to show respect for that. And I think that we often are very passive in our social engagement. We'll look through a lot of stuff, and some of the things might really resonate, but we don't take the effort to like or comment. And I
Yeah,
think that if we want to actually strengthen relationships in this digital world, then we need to have some type of etiquette that shows respect. And I might not necessarily think that what you're posting is so interesting, but you're posting it because it's interesting to you. And
yeah,
out of respect, I should engage
yeah.
because I respect you.
Yeah. Yeah, and you want to add value to the community, and you take the trouble to share your thoughts and ideas. And yeah, I fully agree with you. And Rolf, we basically spent a lot of time talking about relations and relationships. Are there any, let's say, final thoughts on that topic that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, I mean, I think, as the book is titled Relationships Matter, I think it is important to really think about the people around you, and then also to think about the diversity that you have in your network. And are you getting, fresh ideas? And, are there people that you could reach out to in your community and build something new? So I think people, if they're reflective and just take a little bit of time to think about the people around them and maybe people they've lost touch with, that can bring a lot of joy and unexpected opportunities, both personally and professionally.
No, super. That is a wonderful phrase and a wonderful call to action, Rolf. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Rolf, thank you for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I can recommend anyone to read the book. I had a lot of fun reading it. I got a lot of stuff out of it, and yeah, also wish you a lot of luck and success with Meerkats.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to reconnect with you, and thanks again for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.
Super. Thank you very much, and see you again soon. Bye
All right,
bye.
thanks. Take care. Bye.